The departure of Netanyahu, I want to bring in Yohan Plesner. He's the president of the Israel Democracy Institute. Good to have you with us.
Hi, Linda. Thanks for having me.
So after 12 years in power, Benjamin Netanyahu is out. Give us your perspective on the legacy he leaves behind.
Well, first of all, it's a sign of strength for Israel's democracy to experience a peaceful transfer of power. It's never trivial, and it's always a beautiful thing to see all the security guards and the convoy of the Prime Minister Netanyahu driving into the Knesset yesterday, and the same convoy then taking Naftali Bennett along. And it also symbolizes a shift of generations in Israeli politics. And Naftali Bennett is almost a generation younger than Mr. Netanyahu. And Netanyahu didn't only serve for 12 years as prime minister. He actually became first prime minister 25 years ago in 1996. And in between, he served for 15 years as prime minister and otherwise at the top of Israeli politics. So he's been a very dominant figure in Israeli politics. He has a mixed legacy, both of macroeconomic stability, security stability, and at the same time, he's leaving behind a divided Israeli society, a toxic internal rhetoric that characterized our internal discourse. And this new government that is led by Naftali Bennett, but it's basically he's a first among equals. It's a government of a number of partners. Its main goal is to heal the Israeli society and to kickstart the Israeli economy and prepare it for the post-COVID environment.
When you look at this coalition, it is highly diverse. It is this cobbled together coalition of right-wing, left-wing, centrist, Islamist parties who really had in common their desire to push Netanyahu out. Where else will they find a unified platform?
Well, you're right that one of the common denominators of this heterogeneous group of 8 political parties is the fact that they wanted to replace Mr. Netanyahu. This is the glue that connected them together. It's right-wing, centrist, and left-wing parties all building a partnership together. They have a very narrow parliamentary base, and political professionals will say, well, it won't necessarily survive for long. But what keeps them together is, number one, Netanyahu didn't retire from politics. He remained a dominant chairman of the opposition and continues to pose a political threat to this group. So in order to deal with this threat, they have to stick together. And at the same time, all of those younger politicians have an interest in improving themselves, in focusing on the 70% that most Israelis can agree on, rather than on the 30% of issues that are more contentious. And if they focus on those 70% and get the machine of government to function again, this coalition can survive and surprise many pundits and perhaps serve for 3 or 4 years.
And talk to us, break that down for us. When you say the 70% of things that Israelis agree on versus 30% of points of contention, break it down. What exactly are you talking about? Are we talking more in internal politics when you're talking about the 70% of things that people will agree on?
Well, the 2 main areas where people agree on, first of all, is getting the economy started. The government needs to pass a budget. And it has a plan to make massive investments in infrastructure, in government reform, and in most of those areas, unlike, say, in American politics, actually in Israel, those areas are less politically controversial, and it's easier to build agreement around them. So the government will first and foremost will focus on the economy. It will focus on making many appointments that have not been made as a result of a 2-year political crisis. So the bar is actually quite low just to get the government functioning, to pass a budget, to make nominations, and to lower the flames of the internal discourse, and perhaps even, and this will be a more challenging goal, to initiate some constitutional measures and electoral reform that are very much the conclusion of the 2-year political crisis that we had, that in order to fix the political system and to ensure that we won't slide back into paralysis, we need to initiate some constitutional reforms and electoral reform that will really stabilize our system. If this government will, beyond just passing a budget and making nominations, initiate constitutional and electoral reform, it will actually have the opportunity to become a historical government and not just a caretaker government that will take us out of the political crisis.
And just briefly to wrap this up, we recently saw the flare-up of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Is there any chance of peace, any chance of some sort of strategy now that for the first time we are seeing an Arab party within government?
Well, you're right to mention the fact that something historic happened. One of the parties that represents the Arab minority of Israeli citizens, 20% of our citizens belong to the Arab minority. And for the first time, this coalition includes an Islamist party that is voted confidence in a Zionist government. And there's with a broad support of Israelis across the political spectrum. This is an important step forward in the integration and normalization of the participation of our Arab citizens in the political process. Vis-a-vis the Palestinians, who are not Israeli citizens, but rather on the other side of the fence, I think the main goal would be to stabilize the relationship. Hamas initiated deadly, violent rocket attacks at Israel. The policy vis-a-vis Hamas is not going to change. If Hamas will not shoot, the Israeli government will not shoot back. If Hamas decides to escalate the situation, this government will respond and retaliate as well. So I think when it comes to security policy, we're not going to experience any deviation from the past. Of course, a major challenge for the new government would be to collaborate and cooperate with the new U.S. administration in dealing with the Iranian threat and ensuring that Iran does not achieve a nuclear capability.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Johan Plesner, great to get your perspective on all of that. Thank you very much.